Welcome to the fourth development log for Chronicle Destiny, a weekly summary regarding the development of the game Chronicle Destiny. This week was mostly a rewrite of what I have done previously. Uh, it was just for clarity. Some of the code was starting to get a bit more unruly. Uh, One of the main things that I did is basically establish the dialog layout. Um, Normally, you will have the NPC and the player switch out who's talking in the same area. Because I am aiming a real-time dialogue, I think that both should be visible at the same time. And so this is so far what I have, what I think it will work to have both the player reply and the NPC's response both at the same time. One thing that I'm trying right now is to avoid creating any art assets. But for the mugshots over here, I thought that it would be a good opportunity to see how would the style hold up uh, in this kind of layout. So far it does look like it might be good. But yeah, right now I am avoiding using art assets so I can just focus on gameplay. Now, this is basically how the dialogue is going to flow. Right now, it's just placeholders. Right now, there's really no logic on what is being said. Uh, but basically, how the system handles a conversation. Uh, Everything starts with the player pressing the dialogue key. Right now, it is mapped to the shift key. And as long as the player holds the shift key, the selection of whatever the player can reply is presented. The player can select whatever they want. They can cancel if they choose to. But if a selection is made, then when they release the key, uh, it's gonna print out a text area in order to present whatever the selected reply was. Right now it is just random strings, just goes like going through hello, hi, and yeah. But later on we're gonna develop a way uh, to give out different replies. Uh, the next important thing about the dialogue is if the player is in a conversation with an NPC or not. If they're not, then whatever they're saying, nobody is going to respond to it. But if they are in a conversation, the NPC they're in a conversation with will be responding to the player's reply. And one way to show that the player is in a conversation or not is to have the NPC mugshot that they are in a conversation with showing on the bottom left. So even if they're not saying anything, the mugshot is still present. That means that they're still in conversation with that NPC. So anything the player replies, that NPC will be responding to. If there's no mugshot there, that means they're not in a conversation, so nobody will respond to the player's replies. And as long as they're in a conversation, the NPC will respond to those replies. So right now, the player can move and can also attack and still deal with the conversation. Right now, it just times out. After a certain amount of time, it drops the conversation. Um, but there will be different ways that the conversation can end. So there are four major flags that are being used to basically direct how the dialogue is flowing, basically. The first one is if thinking. Basically, that happens when the player presses the dialogue key. Uh, Basically, the player is thinking, and they can select a reply of the available options. If they do select something, then there will be is speaking will be true, and if speaking is true, then that just displays whatever the reply was. And being in a conversation or in convo for short is important. If they are not in a conversation, then the NPC that is in front of the player will be placed in that conversation. And if they are in a conversation, the NPC that is in the conversation will be responding to the player's replies. And is listening is basically what the NPC is responding. So if the NPC is actually saying something, is listening is set to true, otherwise it's false. So last week's goals were dialogue conversation, basically how to handle a conversation. So basically that's basically all I did. Dialogue options, basically how to select different options. Dialogue interrupt and dialogue numbers. But this week all I did was dialogue flow, which basically is the dialogue conversation. Basically how the dialogue flows, how the conversation happens in the dialogue system, how it flows in real time. So for next week, the goals are dialogue response. Basically that will be how does the NPC choose to respond to the reply. Right now it's hard coded, so how will different NPCs be able to give out different responses? Dialogue types. Basically that has to do with what are the options available for the player to provide to select. Right now it is just greet, ask, and command. That's basically one type. Right now it's calling it approach. When you approach an NPC, those are what you can select. And depending on the context, there are going to be different types. Like the next one is dialogue options. That's a different type. If you have different options to choose, it's going to switch it to that type, to an options type. Dialogue interrupt. Basically, how to stop the NPC from responding without dropping out of the conversation. So keep the conversation going, but basically interrupt it, saying basically like wait a bit, and then later on is okay, let's keep talking, let's keep the conversation. And dialogue numbers is basically is another type, how to reply with numbers. So if, like in the NPC ask you how many bags do you want, have how to reply with numbers. I want 5 bags, I want 2 bags, so on and so forth. So this build is available at my website, bluestar03.com, under the alpha page. So it is available for anyone to try out. Additionally, I will be going to the GDC Expo this year. It's going to be on March 18, something like that. Yeah, I'm just gonna go to the expo, the cheapest option available, and yeah, that's basically it so far. Have nothing else. Any comments are welcome. Thanks for watching.